Hello developers, writers, and everyone who loves game design.
Welcome to DLC Not Included, our weekly podcast where we discuss game development, the industry, and everything in between.
We're your hosts, Steele
and Teal. Glad you could join us.
All right, going into the home stretch at episode 17 of our first season.
Yes, and it's been a good run.
It has been. I hope you guys have been enjoying, whether you're listening live or listening to us on many of our podcast services now.
Yeah.
We hope that you've been enjoying DLC Not Included. The season one's referring to being the dev itself. It's actually talking about being an indie dev.
Being an indie dev and your experiences, the things that you'll be encountering as a developer.
Right. And speaking of that, what we're going to talk about today is something that every developer sooner or later is going to encounter, because releasing your game is never the end.
No. Today's topic is updating your game.
Yes.
And it's something that we mention a lot,
mm-hmm.
but we don't talk about in depth. So today we are.
Right. And just to make sure everyone understands, two notes here. First off, updating is more than just patching. So
yes.
That's why we're calling it updating your game and not patching your game.
Mm-hmm.
Another real important note is we're not actually going to touch upon why you should update your game. You should always update your game after the release of it.
Yeah.
Always. We have seen disastrous games where the developer has just laid a game out on like Steam and hasn't done anything with it. And you can tell if a game has never been updated.
Yes.
So
I also want to take
mm-hmm.
a note here. You should actually start creating an update schedule right after going gold. This is all part of your project management.
Right. So these two things, kind of take those and have them in the back of your head while
mm-hmm.
we talk today about updating your game. The first topic we're going to talk about is we're going to go into when.
Right.
When you should start updating your
When you
game.
should start.
And there's different ways that you do it. There are three different major categories we talked about. There are the release patches, the updates, which are, your content updates.
Right.
And then your hot fixes. So let's start with release patches. When is a good time to start releasing those?
Within the first couple of weeks after your release. You really should. I mean, honestly, it should be part of your schedule.
Yeah.
To start updating right after your release.
Right. And when we talk about right after, when Teal says a couple of weeks, that's because you're giving it a couple of weeks for people to play it, get used to it, and kind of figure out what needs to be addressed on a patch level, the release patches. Release patches are those patches that come out soon after launch,
mm-hmm.
soon after release.
Right.
Now, that includes the day one patch, but we want to talk about that.
Oh, yes, day one.
Yeah,
day one is usually equated to bad releases.
Right. Now, you're always
unfortunate.
You're always going to come across situations where you release a game, it goes gold, it goes live, people are downloading it, and something completely unforeseen breaks it. At that point, a day one patch is needed. However, what we have come to see in the industry, especially the AAA industry, is that games are put out with understood, expected, and easily could have been mitigated bugs.
Yep.
And they don't. They go out and they break everything.
Right.
So what does the developer do? They have the infamous day one patch that everyone waits for, yay, with fanfare and confetti, and it's actually normalized and is celebrating what is technically bad game design.
Yeah, and that's really unfortunate, because we've come to expect that, and that looking upon that as in a holistic view, not a lot of people will purchase a game from a developer known for having that sort of thing.
Right.
So their sales figures are actually stunted until they release the patch. And that shouldn't be happening.
Or even worse, and this is the normalization that Teal and I talk about, rail against all the time, mm-hmm. is that a developer will put out a game, the game will be downloaded, pre-ordered even.
Yeah.
And then people just won't play it until the day one patch comes out.
Yeah.
So it's almost become this ceremonial snark, wink, nudge, that we as a player base are like, well, that's just normal. Wait until the day one patch comes out.
Yeah.
And honestly, and here's the challenge to every indie developer out there listening to this podcast is, should your release schedule be so helter-skelter, should your game dev schedule be so helter-skelter that your players should happily expect a day one patch as being when they can finally play your gold release game?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is
no.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
So we kind of went a bit on a tangent
A little
here,
bit of a tangent, but
release patches are necessary.
yes.
Those first few months right after your game comes out, you want to address those bugs. Those bugs that you and your testing team could never have foreseen because you will never play on enough hardware with enough software configurations.
Right.
It's literally not possible.
Yeah.
So as Teal said, follow that schedule and expect the first couple of months to be just that. We're doing release patches.
Right. And so that brings us to our next little point is updates.
Right. Content updates specifically.
Content updates.
Yes.
And you release those according to your release schedule.
Which, as Teal talked about earlier, you start creating that update schedule right after going gold.
Yeah.
Remember, going gold does not mean release. Going gold is your game is ready to ship and you're going through the marketing, the outreach, and the last few stages prior to release. It usually lasts about 1 to 3 months.
Yeah, something like that.
So while you're in gold and you're doing the marketing and you're doing the outreach and you're getting community and Let's Players to play your game and you're saying, hey, my game goes live on July 1st, blah, 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 you're getting your update schedule.
Yes.
And that's your content update. That's the, hey, we couldn't add these features during development for whatever the reason. So let's go ahead and start adding them. All those quality of life improvements.
Right.
So how would you plan it, Teal?
So plan your updates like you would your game's development.
There you go. Let me talk a little bit about this. You want to organize those updates in about 3 different metrics. First off, take a look at everything that you want to add as a content update.
Right.
Everything. First, start on the ones that are going to make the game the closest to your actual vision. So any updates, let's say you have a difficulty, an automatic difficulty adjustment update, where the game gets a little easier or a little harder depending on how the player is playing. And you couldn't really put that into your actual regular development schedule for whatever reason. Maybe the technology wasn't ready. Maybe the AI was conflicting. Let's just give a reason.
Yeah.
So that was something you had in your core design that you originally wanted. You moved it from a core feature to a peripheral feature. Make that as soon as an update as possible. That's how you want to organize that. That content update needs to be as first and as close to release as humanly possible after you're done with your release patches.
Yeah.
Then you want to put in stuff that kind of rounds out the gameplay. Stuff like quality of life updates, stuff that makes the game more enjoyable.
Yeah, that's it.
It improves the UX, the user experience. And then finally, the content updates would be new content, like improved new maps, texture updates, new animations, new ghosts. I say totally not talking about our favorite game, Phasmophobia. Stuff like that. So that's how you want to organize your content updates. And
so once you've organized it, then let's talk about the actual scheduling of your releases.
Yeah.
And again, you want to approach this from a project management standpoint.
Right.
And you prioritize your updates. And the highest priority, of course, goes out first, lower later. And you want to have a scale. You want to, I'd say most release schedules would be what? 6 months?
I would say 6 months after release.
Yeah, after
you want to
release.
get all those content updates
Right.
again, if possible.
Right.
And I would say maybe because we've talked about this before, and it's really a nebulous number, but I would say every 2 to 4 weeks.
Every 2 to 4 weeks. Yeah.
I mean, if you're churning out updates literally every couple of days, people are going to stop playing your game.
Yeah, because it's like they'll say, "Oh, well, your game's broken," so
or waiting for it to update.
Right.
When you're done updating, your game will play again. So it's finding that sweet spot. Unfortunately, because as you guys know, to peel back the curtain, we always research this shit ahead of time. But the reality is this is really nebulous. You got to feel your audience out.
Yes.
So it might be that for you and your game, it is every 2 weeks you put out a content update.
Right.
It might be every month. It might be once every other month. You've got to feel them out. And it's a little on the fluid side, but I would say Teal was right. About 6 months, you want to get as much content updates out as humanly possible.
Correct, yeah.
Because that's your, that first 6 months is when your game's going to get played the most. The first 2 months is your most critical part.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's why you're prioritizing your most critical updates in that first 2-month period.
Right. Exactly.
You want to capture as much of your audience as you can at launch.
Right. And then you retain them through quality of life and eventually new content.
Exactly.
If you have a game that is going to be played for a long period of time, then your content release schedule should be regular enough that they keep coming back to it.
Exactly.
You know, especially if your game is going to be either a live service or if your game is like a multiplayer, competitive, or co-op. Again, I'm talking about things like Death by Daylight, Phasmophobia. Both of those have to keep coming out with new content. Well, make that regular.
Yes, and of course that's all according to the schedule that you produce.
Which you want to follow as much as humanly possible.
Yes.
Mistakes, mishaps, all that's going to happen. And bugs.
Which leads us to bugs. So, bugs leads us to hot fixes.
Hot fixes. So hot fixes have been around legitimately forever.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
just for the guys in the back, a hot fix is whenever a game-breaking bug appears. Yeah, you have to do a hot fix.
Right. The whole concept of hot fix actually goes back to, I think, the IT industry is where I first heard it, where it's like you don't have to bring the program or the server down. You can fix it while it's running hot.
Yes, that's where it came from.
Right. Technically, a hot fix doesn't work for video games like it does in the IT industry. You actually have to turn the game off.
Yes.
You have to quit the application, then update it. But yeah, words and nomenclature have always been influenced by tangent industries. Yeah. I say going on a tangent.
Okay, so the first thing, most important with hot fixes, you need to, as I said, prioritize your critical bugs.
Yeah, those critical bugs are the things that are going to break your game, or if you fixed one, remember Halo testing.
Oh, yeah.
Halo testing, you fix one bug, but it breaks 3 other things. Yes. All of that is called critical bugs, and those all have to be touched by your hot fix.
Absolutely.
All of them. But it goes more than that, because then you want to talk about minor fixes. Okay, so a minor fix only goes into a hot fix if it's something that you've already completed. So let's say you have a content update that deals with minor bug fixes.
Sure.
And these minor bug fixes have been tested, Halo tested. There's no way these minor bug fixes are going to create new problems.
Yeah.
And then if you can put that in with your hot fix because nothing conflicts, then add in those minor bug fixes.
Right. Adjusting the width of a menu column, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
That's a minor fix.
Exactly.
Easily done, already started.
And as a rule of thumb, avoid quality of life updates. I mean, you could technically squeeze one in if it's already in, it's been vetted, you know it's going to work, it's not going to break anything. Maybe it changes the contrast of the menu so it's a little easier to read.
Sure, or something like that.
Slightly optimized texturing for VR users or whatever. I mean, I would avoid putting quality of life in a hot fix, but if it has been thoroughly vetted, you can sneak one in.
Yeah.
You can, but I would always say, try to have your hot fixes deal with bugs.
That's a rule of thumb, and I would pretty much stick with that.
Yes. So let's move on to the next topic.
So how should you update your game? Well, there's a couple of methods. Some good, some not so good.
Yeah, let's talk about the better, technically quote-unquote best method.
Right.
And that's using what?
Using CDN patching.
Yeah, which is like Steam.
Steam, yeah.
I mean, literally, you just tell Steam, I want to update the game, it pushes the update. In other words, let the software do it for you. Don't reinvent the wheel when someone else has already put that out.
Yeah.
Now, I want to take a moment and give praise to a member of our community, Firehawk. He's one of the few people I've ever seen who's created his own methodology for patching his game through the Microsoft Store.
Absolutely.
So if you have the technical know-how and you can emulate what Steam does, then by all means, more power to you. But if you don't, the best method is let the CDN do it for you.
Let it do it for you. That's what it was built for.
But there's so much more than just updating your game.
Right. Okay. So you can actually incorporate updates into a little bit of a promotional marketing here.
Yes, marketing.
Always market.
Yes.
So you can tease your updates.
Yes.
Especially if you're bringing major changes or quality of life improvement. You can have a little, you can have maybe a teaser trailer or just an announcement.
Yes.
And it just kind of brings it to the people's attention and gets interest. So it brings people back into the game that might have, been kind of drifting away from it. It brings them back in.
Right. This is especially true with content updates that add new content, new features, new maps, new enemies, new whatever.
Yeah.
And you can get your influencers involved, the people in your community. So, for example, in the RPG Maker community, get the RPG Maker Let's Players. In the Unreal community, get the YouTubers who specifically play games of that genre. If you're making a horror game, get somebody like John Wolfe or CDGN. I always forget his name. He's the guy who does all the indie horror games. Do him to do it. Send it to them. Send them a free key.
Yeah.
And say, hey, we're about to have a major update drop. Maybe they'll play your game.
Maybe they will.
If you're really lucky, a huge YouTuber like Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, they'll pick up your game. So you never know, But that's all part of the marketing.
That's all part of marketing.
And you want to make sure that you start that well enough before the content update drops.
Well, sure.
And if you're really lucky, to go back to Phasmo for a second, you will have a YouTuber or two who specifically stream your product. And then they'll be in contact with you, and they're your mouthpiece. Think Nuz or Psycho for Phasmophobia. They talk directly to the devs. So use that. So I know I went off on another tangent again, but it's important for you developers to understand that you can use content updates as a marketing tool to get more people to play your game, as well as bring back old players.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the scheduling. So you do want to schedule these official updates far enough apart to keep players interested. Okay. Right. But we talk about that sweet spot.
Right.
You don't want to have them too far apart, because then it seems like you're slow or you don't care. Insensitive, rude. So, yeah.
So finding, again, and it's unfortunately we can't give you guys hard numbers because it's feeling out your audience.
Yeah, it is.
Pay attention to the forums and the discussion boards in which your game is discussed.
Yep.
Your players will give you every indication as to what they're wanting, what they're waiting for, and most importantly, how patient they'll be. Having one or two really loud people talk about how your game should have this, and if your game doesn't have this in the next patch, they're leaving you, isn't as effective as the full room saying, we really need this, we really need this.
Yes.
Have a Discord server specifically dedicated to your game.
And then you can check it regularly and keep on top of the news and buzz about your game.
So that way you're not only giving the right updates, but you're giving your updates at the right time.
Right.
Now this is always important for everything, the most important for content updates. Release patches, yes, very important. Hot fixes, yes, very important. But those content patches
content updates is what you can...
You keep your finger on the pulse. That's your gold right there. Now, here's another one that I love. This is why I love Steam. This is why Teal and I specifically are releasing our products on Steam, because of something called the beta feature.
Yeah, that's a handy little tool.
The beta branch, as they like to call it, for different games. So with that, if your CDN, like Steam, uses a beta feature, you can push all your content, updates, bug fixes, and stuff to a beta that players can then opt into.
Yeah.
And they can play your beta and give you feedback on your beta. And then when you've got enough feedback, then you can push that tweaked update to the main branch, to the public.
To the official release of the game.
That is such a powerful feature.
Yeah, it is.
And it is just more people need to do that.
I wish they would. They because it's a good way for folks to get a sneak peek of the new improved product.
Yeah.
And again, marketing 101, you're drawing people in. There's some people that just it drives them to be, the first.
Right.
And they get to be on this beta thing, and they talk, and
the more involved the player base of your games feel like they are in the improvement of your game, the more loyal they'll be, and the more they'll bring in other people, and the better your game will do. Hands-off developers, developers who just create a game and then sit back and just release patches, are never going to be as successful as the ones who are actively involved in their player base community.
It's all about engagement.
All about it. And that is, you can take that to the bank. Absolutely. Quick thing on hot fixes before we move on, because I do want to mention something.
Okay.
Hot fixes, send as much information out as you can. Let people know what's going on when they're coming, so that people, if they have a problem, like let's say you have a game-breaking bug that only affects people on the Oculus Rift.
Yeah.
That's all it does. If they're on the Oculus Rift, this game breaks. Then let them know, hey guys, this fix for this bug will be in this hot fix, which is coming out in 2 weeks. Let them know. It's courtesy, as much as humanly possible. Now, before we move on to a method we're not really fans with, I want to talk about something that kind of slides in between, and that's sites like GitHub.
Okay.
Now, we don't generally talk about GitHub, Teal and I, because we don't use it. However, GitHub and things like it that have the ability to version your documents, your code, etc., are very, very useful. And if you, as a developer, can incorporate that into creating a patch history or an update history, please do so, because then it gives complete visibility to everyone where your game has been and where your game is going to go. It doesn't automate like Steam does, but it does give complete visibility and complete versioning and allows for rolling back in case there's an issue. And rollbacks, which we won't talk too much about because it's kind of philosophical as to when they're needed and not needed. Rollbacks are good to have for your players in case something that you gave them breaks just their specific thing. Yeah. They can roll back. Drivers do that a lot. Like in fact, we had an issue where we had to roll back our NVIDIA driver the rig because we have a 4K TV, we have an HTC Vive Pro, and we have an RTX 2080. The NVIDIA driver that came out about 2 weeks ago made it so that every time a VR application started on our rig froze. It was very, very specific. Yes, it was. So in that instance, we had to roll back our driver, and that's where things like GitHub are really helpful. Yeah. So if you need to do versioning or you need to do rollbacking, consider GitHub. Stuff like that, yeah. Yeah. Now, there's a method that we're not a fan of, but you can technically do it.
And that's manually patching. We call it the loose file method.
This is something that was done back in the day. It's all you could do.
Yeah, it's all you could do.
Our very first game that we made in RPG Maker that we've since destroyed because it sucked. We would update that manually.
Yes, we would.
Using loose files. But only use this if there's no other way. There really, it's
so much can go wrong with that
because you're taking files, putting them into a zip file or whatnot, and then having people overwrite. Yeah, and it generally doesn't work out. There's a reason why the Nexus, which is where all the mods for every game we play are, usually try to get you to use something like Vortex or Mod Organizer, because that handles that better than just manually downloading and overwriting. Yes, it does. Because when you overwrite a file, it's hard to get it back. It's hard to roll back. So you can do this, but we recommend it only as a last resort. And we also say to
double and triple test every file.
Everything. Because if you manually loose file update your game, and one of the files you have in there is buggy or messes up, you just put out an update or a patch that broke your game. Don't do it.
Please don't do it.
I would rather see you spend the money for Steam Direct on your, 2-hour dungeon crawler. Yeah. And have your game not break and have you not take the hit to your reputation than for you to do a manual update that they have to download off of your website or whatnot. That doesn't have versioning or rollbacking because you're not using GitHub. And the next thing you know, your update broke your game. Don't do that. Oh my gosh, don't do that. And also, it's better to over-add, isn't it?
It's better to over-add than under-add.
So if
you're manually patching.
Yeah, with those loose files. So let's say that you have 5 maps that are being updated. And in the course of updating those 5 maps, you may have touched 1 or 2. You're not 100% sure. Or there's a couple connected to it that kind of work off those. Right. I'd rather see you take those maps that are kind of in that gray area and add them to the manual patch. Because even if we're overriding the same file with the same file, better safe than sorry.
Exactly. You always want to err on the side of caution when you're manually patching your game.
Always. Now, no matter what method you're using, no matter what software, no matter what transport you're using, no matter using beta or not beta, there's a golden rule that if you don't follow this, we are going to yell at you.
Yes.
And that is
list everything in your patch.
Everything with the whether it be a content update, a hot fix, or release. If your patch is changing anything, let them know. Never leave anything out.
Right. This is just all part of good development practice.
Yes.
Logging your changes
Yes.
and then being transparent so that everyone can see the log and know what was changed.
That way they can decide, is this right for them? Is it wrong for them? Or, hey, maybe they're enterprising enough to know, hey, if this changes, this is going to affect my game, my save, this is going to affect anything.
Yeah.
They have the right to know. And even though there's no law, there's no rule, there's no terms of service, it's just considered acceptable. It's socially acceptable. It's that social contract.
Right, it is.
And you owe it to your players to not insult them by trying to hide something. And even if it's an embarrassing bug that no one figured out and you saw it, you could say, one little line, you can kind of save yourself some face to fix a bug where this, and this, and then, but you don't have to draw attention to it, but don't hide it.
You're right.
Don't hide it.
It's just best practices.
It's best practices. Eat a little bit of crow to keep eating the whole damn flock. Murder.
Right.
There you go. Eat a little bit of crow to avoid a full murder.
Oh, gosh.
I can be quoted on that one.
So, when should you stop updating your game?
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so first off, and I'm going to come back and visit this later, unless your game is one of those that's going to run perpetually, you're going to eventually stop.
Of course you are.
Eventually.
So you should, as Webb said before, you need to have an update roadmap and follow that.
Yes.
Okay? Project Management 101.
Yes.
There's your roadmap. You follow it.
Follow it.
It's okay to add stuff to your roadmap.
Right.
But not too much.
Right.
Okay? If you start adding a whole lot, and trust me, you'll know what a whole lot is.
Yes.
Then it just looks like your game just wasn't finished. You released it before you were ready to release it.
Or you cross over to the point where you're just basically making a DLC. People are going to call you out.
Oh,
they're going to be like, okay, so you had 10 features when your game started, and now on your 4th update, we now have 20. Haas, you never finished your game.
You didn't, yeah.
People are not stupid. They're going to figure it out. It's okay to subtract from that roadmap.
Exactly. Yes, it is.
But only if you feasibly can't do it. So if you have part of your roadmap, especially if you've advertised it, and this is where it's going to get a little uncomfortable for you. But if you've advertised, for example, added couch co-op support, and you can't feasibly do it for whatever reason, you can put out an announcement and say, hey, we've removed this from the roadmap for this game because of, and list the reasons.
That's the reasons.
You don't have to go into deep levels of excuses. You don't finger point. Just say, look, the technology just isn't feasible. We apologize. We'll try to overcome it for our next project, etc. But that's okay. Just only if you can't do it. Not because you're lazy, not because you don't want to, not because it's a lot of work.
Right.
If you promised something and it's going to take a lot of work, get a lot of work done.
Get a lot of work done. Roll up your sleeves and get in there.
So, yeah. And then also learn to say that this is going to go in our next game.
Right. That kind of segs from the it's okay to subtract to just knowing when you're done.
Yeah.
And as Steele said, learn when to say, well, this is going to go in the next game.
Yeah.
Just can't put it in this game.
Even if there's not another game in this series, even if you're never going to revisit this world or this concept.
Yeah.
Just know when to say, okay, this is my game. This is what we got.
Yeah.
I let my work speak for myself. That's a big thing we talk about.
Yes, it is.
Let your work speak for yourself.
Yeah.
Now, hot fixes are a little different.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we're going to take a hardline stance on this. When do you shop hot fixes, Teal?
Until you do them until all your game-breaking bugs are squashed.
Right. So some people will say, well, at a certain point, we should stop with the hot fixing because our player base is dwindling. No.
No.
You don't know if someone 5 years from now is going to come and play your game, and if you still have game-breaking bugs, it's going to make you look dumb. So, yeah. Always try to fix the vast majority of major bugs as well, but focus on those critical game-breaking bugs.
Yes.
When they're all squashed, when the vast majority of the major bugs, and when as many minor ones that you can do are released, are squashed, then you can stop.
You can stop the hot fixes.
Yes.
Yeah.
there's a certain culture that we have nowadays where games are never going to be truly bug free.
True.
So it's a courtesy for you as a developer to quote unquote prove them wrong by squashing as many of those minor bugs as well.
Sure.
Now, is it possible with massive games with huge levels, tons of levels, huge amount of NPCs, tons of scripting where lots of different things are happening? Is it really possible to make a game like that bug free? Maybe.
Statistically, no.
Yeah.
But it's possible.
But if you get it quote unquote good enough, that's okay.
Okay.
Your players will understand if your game is as bug free as humanly possible, especially in today's current gaming culture.
Right.
Let me go ahead and give you a litmus test, okay? When people stop playing your game, when they have stopped playing your game regularly, when your game is no longer the talked about toast, when people are no longer going to your forums or your Discord server asking for the next update, but they start asking about your next game, or when you personally just can't do it anymore, when you've squashed all your bugs, you've added all your content, you're looking at possible QOLs, that you're just getting these quality of life concepts just from talking to your player base. When all of that has dwindled and you're like, you kind of get this feeling, I'm done.
Yeah.
So when your player base is done, when you're done, then it's time to move on. There's no harm in that.
No, that's part of your development.
Yeah.
You're gonna the project is going to be finished. Right. Your game is going to be considered finished at some point, and you move on. And
then you move on, and that's okay. Feel it out.
Yeah.
And remember, and this is the most important thing. People seem to think there's permanence in decisions, and there's not, because you can always revisit if you were wrong.
Yes.
If you have let's say you put out a game, and 6 years later, suddenly it ends up on some high-profile influencer's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And people start playing it. And all of a sudden, your player base goes from, 100, 200, maybe you sold 1,000 copies.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're selling 100,000, 200, 500. It's totally okay for you to reopen those files.
Reopen the files.
And start working on it again. That's okay, because you can always roll back your own decisions. A quick sidebar before we get to questions.
Okay.
Let's talk about updates versus DLC. Now, this is not a DLC podcast because DLC is not included. See what I did there?
Yeah, we see what you did there.
But let's talk about the difference, because a lot of indie developers, especially the ones starting out, confuse content updates with DLC.
So what is the difference?
Okay, right. So a content update is small content that you were thinking of already adding. Small content. Things like your quality of life updates, minor tweaks, new maps, new enemies, things that you probably would have put into the initial release if you had either thought about it, had the time, had the resources monetarily, technologically, etc. Those are content updates.
Right.
That's small things, little chunks here, little chunks there. Yes, they can add up, but the whole idea is that it's, small isolated pieces.
Right, that's part of your initial game.
Right. A DLC, which is an entirely different monster that we could go on an entirely different conversation about. Those are major stuff that you hadn't committed to adding to the base game.
A new chapter, a new adventure.
Right. A entirely new landmass, a new area completely.
Yeah, a new area opens up.
With new quest lines. A epilogue. Now, I have an issue with that, a caveat to that, but let me get this out first. An epilogue to the main story that connects to your next game. Things like Trespasser.
Trespasser is
a fantastic example of that. Now, let me talk about the caveat. Unless you properly market and explain it, unless you're very intelligently communicative with your player base, it's going to look like you're gypping them. A lot of people were pissed off that Trespasser was not a part of Dragon Age Inquisition's base game.
Yeah.
It pissed people off.
Yeah.
And understandably so. The better way to handle that would be when the base game came out, because the base game is about the Inquisitor versus Gryphon.
Yep.
It should have been said that one of the DLCs on the DLC roadmap will be bridging to the next Dragon Age game. In other words, telling the player that. Yes. And then keeping the price down so they're not paying a massive amount of money for it. Because if I recall, Trespasser wasn't cheap. I don't remember exactly.
No, it wasn't, and it was shocking.
Yeah.
DLC is not supposed to be as expensive as your main game.
That's the other caveat. Please do not make your DLC as expensive as your base game. Cut the price down to a quarter, if that, or lower. Keep it down. If you have a $20 base game, have your DLC be no more than $5.
There you go. Just no more than 25%.
Yeah, no more. And don't be greedy. Trust me, if it's successful, people will grab it.
Absolutely.
But anyway, that's the idea. So DLC is a small, mini, self-contained part that adds onto the base game.
Exactly.
And we recommend DLC because Studio Blue is against in-game app purchases, microtransactions, etc.
Yes.
But we think that DLC is a fantastic way to add more to your game, but make sure it actually adds.
Yes, it needs to add something to it.
Don't say a DLC is extra workshop items and extra costumes. That's bullshit.
That's
I'm looking
not DLC.
Specifically at you, Dynasty Warriors, 8 Empires.
Oh, yeah.
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Or Soul Calibur 6, also bullshit. That's not DLC.
Yeah.
Okay. So now it's time for us to take questions from our live audience.
If you've been watching, remember to use the podcast question feature in chat.
Ha ha ha. So we already have one here.
Awesome. This is from KV Kingdom. Earlier you mentioned having Let's Players play your updates prior to them going live. What do you think about having a Let's Player play an alpha or beta version of a game, either before or while that version is publicly available?
All right. Thank you for the question, KV. I do want to say that we have touched upon this before, but I don't mind. It bears repeating.
It does.
What you want is you want to put your game out to the public when you are in mid to late beta. Yeah. Don't want to put an early alpha out to the public. It really, I say that, it never gets followed. And it always results in the same thing.
It's tears. It results in tears.
An alpha goes out to a Let's Player. The Let's Player plays it. And suddenly, two things happen.
Oh.
One, people get an expectation that your alpha is going to be your final product.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you tell them, they're going to see your alpha as being how your final product's going to look. Not understanding it's an alpha.
Yeah.
You could tell them that. You could have it tattooed to their forehead.
Oh.
They're not going to see that. So that's the first issue with it. The second is suddenly your Let's Players become your bug testers.
Yeah.
Your players are not your bug testers.
Yeah.
Ever.
They're not. Ever.
So we recommend it in the mid to late beta stage when you've already completed the game. It's all feature complete. All of the placeholders have been replaced by real graphics, real sound, real music, and you're just bug testing.
Yeah.
That's fine. The closer you can get to gold comfortably, the better.
The better.
But yeah. So hopefully that answers your question there, KB. Let's see if any others pop up. While we're waiting on that, what do you think about really large DLCs that actually act like new games?
I think that they have their place.
Yeah.
Certainly they can add to the story, but some games in particular have a very interesting and diverse tertiary cast.
Yeah.
And I would think that a large DLC that deals with the lives and issues of your tertiary cast is a great idea.
I think the best DLC, and this is not going in that direction, Teal, because I can't think any off the top of my head, but the best DLC I've ever seen that almost feels like it's its own game, but it's not, is Shivering Isles for Oblivion.
There we go.
That was one of the best DLCs ever made. Because it is its own self-contained adventure. It could have been its own game. It was really big. But at the same time, it's still connected just enough to Oblivion that you felt it was one and the same. And I think that, to me, is what I would rather than a DLC that's just literally feels like it's part 2.
Yeah.
I'd rather it almost be its own game.
No. You don't want to have either a part 2 or a sequel as a DLC.
As a DLC, right. Because at that point, for me, I would want to see refinement of the features and then pumping that out as another game.
Right.
a good example of that is Saints Row Gat Out of Hell.
Okay.
Remember, Saints Row Gat Out of Hell, which is where Johnny Gat and Kinsey Kensington go to hell to basically rescue the boss from Satan.
Right.
That originally was going to be a DLC for Saints Row 4.
Oh, that's why it... Okay.
But it was so big. It became so massive. It became so much its own thing, and Deep Silver likes money, that it became its own game. Gat Out of Hell is about as big as Saints Row 2 or 2, 3, 4. It is huge.
It's a big game, yes.
So why not? So in that case, I felt that it was the right call by Deep Silver, regardless of the fact that it cost more, to pull that out of the DLC pot and into its own self-contained game pot.
Yeah. So they did a good job. They did the right decision.
They did the right decision. All right, let's see. Do we have any more? I don't see any more podcast questions.
I don't see any more podcast questions.
We'll give them another minute.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then we'll go ahead and end the podcast. But I hope that this has been helpful to those who have been listening, because again, it is a not good trap to fall into. Never think that you're done as a developer with a game when that game gets released to the general public.
Right.
You are not done. That is when, in many ways, that's when your real work begins.
Because it's all under support.
Yeah.
You want to support your product.
Yeah. You need to.
And you know, regardless of your industry, whenever a product is released, you have support for the product. At
the very, very least, you have to do release patches.
Of course you do.
And those hot fixes that'll squash those bugs and make your game playable at the very, very least. At the most, everything we talked about, all of it, up to and including DLC that whet the appetite of your players for your next gaming experience.
Yeah, and that's it.
All right, I think that's it for now. We want to thank everyone who was live listening to us, whether it be on Twitch or on our Discord server, simulcast. I want to thank everyone who listens to DLC Not Included on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, other things that I'm probably forgetting. But we love you guys. You guys have made this a lot of fun. We have, I think, about 3 more, and then we're going to be ending season.
That's right.
And we just threw out a last podcast question.
Okay, KV, we'll get your question.
KV says, what if a bug becomes a beloved feature? We've talked about this so many times. If a bug turns into a beloved feature, keep it in.
Oh, yeah, keep it in.
Yeah, just keep it in. Or if you have a developer cheat code that helps you get through your game, like the infamous Konami cheat code, 30 Lives for Contra, keep it in.
Just keep it.
If it gets to the point where somebody is using this in a way that makes it better for the players, don't squash it.
Yeah.
Don't squash it. Let them have their fun.
Let them have their fun.
Because at the end of the day, if the player's not having fun, they're not going to play your game.
So there it is.
All right. So we want to thank every single one of you. And y'all have made DLC Not Included a fantastic time for us.
Yes, you have.
So please, join us next time for DLC Not Included. And remember,
anyone can give you the key, but you have to go through the door.